All right, welcome back everyone to another video of my Unreal For Honor combat tutorial series. This is the second attempt at making this video. I don't know, so some of you actually noticed and had time to comment on the last video. I removed it because I uploaded it and I didn't even see it, but I recorded the entire video for like 40 minutes. And then I had a YouTube video running in the background, so you could hear like the other voice overtaking mine. So completely horrible. So I've already done most changes here. I'm not gonna redo everything, and I'm not gonna like remove everything and do it again. So basically I'm just gonna walk through the changes that I did. But so yeah, as you can see, we're still doing the For Honor combat tutorial series as well. So I'm gonna do a few more videos of this before I wrap it up. But we wanna add some more things to the combat mainly. We're gonna do like the very For Honor specific things. But most things that I do in the other advanced multiplayer tutorial series will be able to be applied to this system as well. So yeah, I'm just here to like teach you the basics, and then you can customize it and yeah, do whatever you want with it basically. So there are a few more things we want to add to this, because right now basically we only have heavy and light attacks. What I want to do in this video is show you how I would add a guard break. So this is what I did in the other video. I'm gonna show you. So we have our enemy here. We're toggling the combat mode here. So, and then if we go into the same guard, let me just see if I can do it. There we go. No, okay, no. We're gonna do, it's a little bit hard because of the speed, but there, you can see me kicking him and he goes into a stun mode. So that's basically what we want to do. So if we are in the same stance and we kick him, he's gonna go into a stun mode like that. And we are free to spam away our attacks. So to do that, you are in the same stance as the enemy, and then you guard break him instead of attacking. Yeah, so I'm just gonna show you how to add that. And the first thing I did some small changes. I added some animation stances because I'm just gonna show you here on the light on the attack. I'm just gonna, because I also added a check before we do attacks. There we go. So we also have this problem where we go into combat mode and you see if I spam the attacks, it just keeps doing them, nothing happens. So we want to fix that as well. And also I changed so that the combat mode is now toggled with tab instead of holding in the right mouse button, which also creates a better feeling. So how did I do all of these things? Where should I start? The first thing, let's switch the combat mode. So I'm just gonna find where I put it. Tab, I think. There we go. So previously we had this and this. So from the right mouse button. So just remove right mouse button and add the tab instead. And you don't have this check, can't take action. I'm gonna add this very soon, so I'm gonna show you how I did it. But first we have this flip-flop, as you can see. So what the flip-flop does is it's the first time we do it, it goes to the A. The second time we press the same button, it goes to the B. So the first time we're gonna enter combat mode, and the second time we're gonna exit combat mode. So that's basically it. And what I want you to do is create this variable called can take action. And this can take action variable, it's a boolean, and it's gonna be controlling whether we can make a new attack, whether we can dodge roll, and as you can see here, whether we can switch stances or not. I mean, whether we can enter or exit combat mode. So just create this variable, it's a boolean called can take action question mark. And basically I added this check, so you can do that as well. So add this check before you switch combat stance, and I also do it on the combat graph. You can see I also do this check before we do the heavy attack, and I do this check before we do the light attack and the dodging as well, and everything. So what happens now is when I spam, see, even if I spam, he doesn't spam the attacks. He just keeps doing he does the entire attack before he goes on to the next one, so it doesn't interrupt the same attack. So the way to do that, because right now in your it works in mine when I do that, but obviously you haven't set up this variable to be toggled on and off. And the way I do that is with animation notify states. So I added this folder called anim states. So create it for yourself, and then we have 2 animation states here. You can hold off for this one for now. That's for the guard break thing. And I call this ANS can do action state. And what an animation notify state does is that I showed this in the advanced multiplayer tutorial series as well, is that from the override here you have the begin and the notify end. So basically what it tells us is that when this state starts, this function triggers, and when this state ends, this function triggers. So on the notify begin, grab your mesh from the mesh component, get the owner, and then cast the owner to your player third person character. And do the same from notify end. And what we're going to do from the begin one is when the state begins, we're going to set can take action to false. So that means that for the duration of this state, this boolean is going to be false. So that means that if we are currently in this can take action state, we are not going to be able to do another action, as you can see here. But if it's true, then we can do an action. So whenever the state ends, as you can see here, notify end, the can take action is going to be set to true again. If that makes sense. I hope you're following. So basically what that... And then we basically control these states from the animation. So in all your animations, you want to have this state called can do action state that I have here. And then you can do it for however long you want to. So as you can see, I hope you're following here. So at the beginning of the attack animation, this can do action state starts. And then for the entirety of this duration, I'm not going to be able to do another state, another action. And the reason we want to use this, the states instead of these notifiers, as you can see, I've done with the enable damage and disable damage notifiers. The easier way would probably actually be to do this from a state as well. I don't know why I didn't do it from a state. So to be honest, I would do it from a state. But it works like this as well. The reason the state is good and these are worse is because if the animation gets interrupted here, let's say here, it's here, if the state is bound to the animation. So whenever the animation stops, so for instance, say we take damage, and instead of finishing this animation, we actually do a hit reaction animation, then the state will still quit. The state will stop. The end state will still trigger, even though the animation didn't finish. Whereas this disable damage notifier, if we interrupt the animation here, this disable damage notifier will never trigger. So it's actually better to do this on a state as well. So I'm probably gonna fix that. So let's see. So we have this start damage traits and end damage trace, right? So this is from the anim notifiers. So let's convert it to a state instead because it's more reliable. I'm gonna copy this, I'm gonna create it, and I'm gonna call it ANS damage trace state. And on the begin here, we are gonna not can take action, but you have this start damage trace. So on the begin, we're gonna start the damage trace. And you have this stop damage trace function. On the notify end, we are gonna stop the damage trace. So that's actually a more reliable way to do it, because you're not depending on the notifiers, and then we can just delete these notifiers and we can delete these notifiers. But what you also need to do is, obviously, in your animations you need to, so in all your attack animations you need to disable your notifiers, and you need to add the state instead. Add notify state, and then go to ANS damage trace state and just drag the state somewhere around there. So that's a more reliable way to do it, because if the animation gets interrupted for some reason, the damage trace will stop as well. Perfect. I hope you followed how to do that. Notifiers are still good for other things, mostly things that trigger once, but when it comes to start and stopping a function, you should do a state instead. Perfect. And then obviously, as I said, just do this check before attacks and everything. Perfect. Now let's get into the guard break. What you want to do first is, to keep it simple, I have two animations for this. Let's go into our animations folder, and I have a kick animation, bam, as you can see, and I have a stun animation. The stun animation in this case is 2.5 seconds long, which is fine for me, but you could obviously shorten if you want to. Just say you want to have it, just go here and remove the extra frames. So the simplest way to set up this is I do it from middle mouse button. Here we go, middle mouse button. So from the middle mouse button, if I press the middle mouse button, and I can take action, which is the variable we set up in the beginning of the video, and combat mode you had from before. God, I really hope I don't have a YouTube video in the background. It doesn't look like it. Desktop audio is not reacting. Very good. Combat mode and can take action. If both of them are true, so it's always better to do an AND node if you're gonna do double checks, because you could do that like this as well. Usually when I prototype, I do 2 checks like this. And the reason I do 2 checks when I prototype is because it's easier to follow along if you do an error. And if you want to debug something, it's easier to check, like, okay, this check is going through and this check is going through. It's easier to follow step by step when you do 2 checks. But the problem with doing 2 checks is that you are doing 2 checks. So it's going to be heavier on performance. It's not really a big deal when it's like 1 or 2, but in a finished game you probably do, like, it's going to be a big difference if you do 500 checks and 250 checks at the same time. Can take action and bool. Just add and boolean, and then we add it like that. Perfect. And then we have this server play montage function from before. So just add, and the montage you want to play is your kick montage. or whatever animation you want to use. And check so it's working. That means that it should, as long as you're in combat mode, you should be able to kick. Perfect. So that's the easy setup. Now we're gonna do the actual tracing, the actual kick trace. So what you want to do is you want to create a function. Create a new function. Here I have. I just call mine kick trace. And you could obviously do this by a collision as well. So what you could do is you could add a sphere collision and make it a child of the mesh and parent it to the foot, the right foot. You could do something like this, and then just check if that collision is overlapping, and then with this, and then just disable and enable this collision whenever you want to. I prefer to not use collisions though, whenever I can, because I find that in multiplayer network games, I find collision to be a little bit more unreliable than traces. I find traces to be on point, to be honest, so I always prefer to use tracing. The good thing with tracing as well is that you can break like the actors and get which bones are hit and things like that, and you can do different damage if you hit your head and things like that. So anyway, this function, I'm gonna walk you through this function now, so bear with me. When the function starts, we want to do a sphere trace for objects, not by channel, and it's not a line trace, and it's not a multi-sphere trace. It's a regular sphere trace for objects. And what the sphere trace for objects does, it reacts to whatever object you tell it to react to. So drag out from the object type, make array to get an array, and then you can just add whatever objects you want to. We have pawn because that's the only thing we're going to use now. So it reacts to pawns. Our player character is a pawn though, and we don't want it to react to our player character. So also make an array from actors to ignore and add self to that array. Perfect. I do 40 just for testing purposes. In radius, don't forget the radius. If the radius is 0, it's not going to work. So if it's not working, you probably forgot to set the radius. And I'm just going to show for duration now, just to debug it. And it's not going to work for you yet, but keep this for duration. And then what we want to do is we want to add a check here from the return value. You want to add a branch to check if we hit something, because if we don't hit something, we don't want to continue to do the calculations and everything that comes afterwards. We want the function to stop here in that case, because this is going to be a repeating function. And if we do hit something, we want to break the hit, and we want to get the hit actor, and we want to cast that hit actor to our master AI. Then we want to do exactly the same thing as we do when we apply the damage. If you remember that, we already have this already damaged enemies variable. It's a master AI array. So you add, basically we check if this already damaged enemies array contains the master AI we just overlapped with our kick collision. If it's true, if the AI is already in this variable, then we don't want to do anything. But if it's not, then we want to add it. That's basically it. So we add it. But before we add it, we also want to make one thing sure, because we don't want to just be able to stun the enemies with our kick whenever. It's a guard break. And the thing with For Honor is that the guard break works like if I'm in the right stance and the AI is also in the right stance, actually it should probably be if I'm in the left stance and the AI is in the right stance. because we, yeah. I'm not entirely sure. I'm gonna have to jump into For Honor and check how it's actually working. But anyway, for now, I just check if the player and the AI is in the same stance. Let me just check. That's not gonna work, right? It should be the opposite side. Because now I'm right and he's left. And he's up. So up is fine. But obviously if he's... Because you want to go the same way that he does, right? Because this is my left and it's his right. So, yeah, that's true. I'm just a little bit confused by this. I probably shouldn't get stuck on this in a tutorial. I'm gonna do it like this for now, but to be honest, you probably should, because if we're in the left stance, we are mirroring him, right? I'm not entirely sure how this works in For Honor, to be honest. I don't remember. But for now, I'm just checking if we are in the same stance as the enemy. So basically, you mimic the enemy. But I think it might be that you should be in the opposite side. If the enemy is to the right, you should be to the left. The only thing that is the same is that the up function. I'm not entirely sure. So maybe we should do... So I don't really remember. So let's do like this for now. No, actually, this is one way to do it. This is a check to see if we are in the same state as the AI. So I'm dragging from the master AI, which is the AI that we are currently hitting. I'm getting the player state from the AI, and then I check with our own player state, which is this one. And if we are in the same state, then we continue to add the already damaged enemies. And then we end with this AI stun function that I'm gonna create very soon, so hold off on that one for now. If it turns out that you can do whichever way you want, if it turns out that you should be the opposite direction, then we need to switch. So we should get this and switch on the E player state of the enemy. And then do different things depending on what state the enemy is in. I think this is actually the correct way to do it. I'm fairly sure. So okay, yeah. So this is how to do it in that case. So if the enemy's guard is up, our guard should also be up. So drag from your own player state and type equal to guard up. So to equal, and not the byte one, the enum one. It's equal to guard up. Then we are stunning the enemy. And from, so basically you need to do this 3 times. From the guard left, if our, and this is where it gets confusing. So guard left on the enemy should be guard right on our character. And guard right on the enemy should be guard left on our character. That means we are mirroring him better. I'm fairly sure that's how it's supposed to be honest, because that's my instinctive way to do it. Because when I tried it before, I thought like, is this a bug or something? But it was just that I hadn't set this up. So yeah, that's the proper way to actually do it. I'm fairly sure. I'm just gonna see how that feels. Oh, sorry. I also need to hit. Yeah, there's some other things we need to fix as well. We need to add some rotation when we're doing this kick, because otherwise we're never gonna hit him, because he keeps strafing around us. There you go. Yeah, it's definitely that way. So this is definitely the right way to do it. Like this. Sorry for the mess with the threads and everything. I hope you followed here. The Switch ones can get pretty confusing sometimes. But that's why enums are nice, because you can do a lot of stuff with it. And then we have this function. You need to create this function first. So go into your master AI. And you have this AI stunned. So just right click, create custom event, add a custom event, call it AI stun. Doesn't need to be replicated or anything, because we already have this server play montage thingy. Sorry, got a call. And yeah, so we're playing the stun montage, which is this one. And since it's root motion, make sure that it's root motion enabled, and since it is root motion enabled and everything, the enemy will just not do anything else during that root motion animation. And then we have this, and now you can add this function after this. We still, obviously it's not going to work for you yet, because you still have to do this trace, which you aren't really doing yet. So let's add a state for that trace as well. So go into your prefab, animations, anim states. You have this ANS damage, no, ANS kick trace state. So just open that one. So on the notify begin, instead of the other stuff we do, the basic setup is the same. Notify begin, get your player character, cast from it, and type set timer by event. No, by function name. This one. And you see, we created this trace function here. What we want to do is we want to repeat it during the kick. So in this state, just for the function name, it's going to be the kick trace. It needs to be exactly the same. Then you need to set it to looping so that it loops. And then you have to experiment with however often you want to do it. Something like that maybe. And on the end trace, we pause the timer by function name. It's going to be the same function name here. And what we also need to do by the end of the trace is to clear the already damaged enemies so that we can attack and kick again afterwards. And then obviously in your kick animation, where is it? Combat graph. In your kick animation, you also need to add this state. So you have this can do action state, which is the first one, so that we can just spam kick. And then you have this ANA kick trace here, so the kick trace is going to be kicking off from there to there. So yeah, sorry, just a habit of saving all the time. See, I saved 10 minutes on this video. By this time I was like on 45 minutes or something on the other video. So it is a little bit easier to just do the videos afterwards, but it's not as fun. It didn't work. Let's see if I'm actually correct here. So the up one works. He is in left. I hate that he's backing away. Also I'm moving way too slow on my player character. I'm not sure why why I set the speed so low. Yeah, this is also some. Yeah, I probably learned a lot after I did this, but I would easily do like this: promote to variable, call it walk speed, and plug the walk speed into that function, and also plug it in here. And then we just need to switch this variable whenever we wanna change the speed. So let's do 200 instead. Still a bit slow, but better. And you can see I stunned him because he has a standard state, which he shouldn't have. So the standard is up. Let me just see. Okay, I missed. Okay, something is off. Yeah, okay, now you can see it worked. So there are two ways to do this. Either I'm sorry about this, I just need to figure out. Yeah, okay, yeah. So you can see that it's working. This is easily the right way to do it, to match his pose. And yeah, you can see it's working. We got some screen shakes. To fix the screen shakes, go into your Master AI, open, and what you're gonna do is just add a collision, sphere collision. Always use sphere collision whenever possible if you're gonna use collisions, because sphere collisions are better than, it's the cheapest collision basically. So sphere collisions are cheaper than box collisions. I know this is debated, but it's the truth. I don't care about what you say. And just do something like this. No, maybe not 50, 60, 70. So I'm gonna do a sphere collision of 70. And I'm gonna go into the collision settings of this one. And we're gonna do instead of overlap, we're gonna do a custom collision. And we are gonna ignore everything except pawns. Because pawns is our player character, right? Just gonna make sure that I haven't changed this. It's a pawn, yeah. So we want this collision to actually stop our player collision. And the reason we're getting this like is actually maybe we don't need to do a no, this is fine. And you have this can ever affect navigation. Set it to false. And also on this one, can character step up on? No, never. No, good. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see if that helps with the collision issues. I think it does. It's already less jittery. Let's see. I took damage, right? Yeah. I'm just debugging here to see so that I'm not... Okay, it's not entirely... It's still jittering a little bit. I'm not entirely sure why. Let me check. Maybe we should add it to the player as well. Actually, okay, in this case I think it's because it's a sphere collision. Let's do a capsule collision instead. Capsule. And do 40. No, that should do the same thing. Something like that. I'm not sure. You have to play around with this. This helped me in another project at least. I'm gonna go with something like this. Can ever effect and can no. And go into your player. I think you should do the same thing here. Capsule collision. Can ever affect navigation? No. Can character step up on? No. And then just set it to something like let's see if it works better now. Actually, we need to switch the collision settings on this one as well. Custom, ignore everything except pawn. So now those two collisions, or wait, let's just make sure. This should also be a pawn actually. Make it a pawn, master AI. No, it should not be a pawn. Because we want these two collisions to block each other. Let's just do pawn for now to see if it works. So block pawn, and it's a pawn. The trace is gonna hit this collision now, which is not the best ideal solution, but let's just see if it works. It does not, so anyway, okay, fuck it. I'm gonna figure out another way to solve that until the next video, I think, or write it down on my debug list. The video is 36 minutes long. If you find this unreliable with this trace, you could just increase the radius of the trace. It is a bit unreliable at this point. What we want to do ideally is rotate towards our AI while we're doing that, which is pretty easy to set up, but this video is still 37 minutes long, so I'm gonna pause it for now, and we'll probably add that in another video. We're gonna need that for later functions anyway. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for this video, and let me know in the questions if you have any comments. I know it's crazy when I already did everything and I'm just going through everything, so it's possible for me to miss stuff when I do it like this, but I just didn't have the energy in me to do everything from scratch. So yeah, that's about it. Let me know in the questions if you have anything. I already have 2 videos of the advanced tutorial series recorded as well, so I'm gonna upload them very, very soon. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you have any questions.